Hello. Today's vlog is gonna be crazy because I feel like shit today, and it was crazy last night too. Well, yesterday I had I don't know what it is, some kind of like episode or what, but it's just the feeling like I'm like zooming in on stuff too much. It's like my mind is not processing things very fastly, very quickly, and I feel like a feeling just like kind of like a bad general feeling, and sometimes I get that loopy feeling too, just like feeling like in a loop type of thing, and I really don't like that. But it wasn't all that bad of a day yesterday, I suppose. But anyway, I talked to my mom a bit about my brother blowing up on me, and she was actually surprisingly supportive. But well, for the most part, I just kind of went to bed, or I just tried to have an easy night and go to bed. I find when I'm having a day like that, or like a bad day, the best thing I can do is just try and go to bed and wait for the next day. But I was having like this headache, and I just felt like stressed out as well. And so I took an L-theanine, and I have all these different supplements. I spent like a ton of money trying all these different supplements to see if anything would help me, because I have like these just like chronic stress, chronic headache, all these different things. So I was trying like, tons of different supplements, and one of them was L-theanine, and that one actually does work for stress. You can hear my cat scratching the crap out of something. And so that does work for stress, and so I took one of these before bed. And also I was feeling like very lonely as well, I think, last night. And this is like a bad time. Like, they say nothing good happens after 11 p.m. or something like that. And so I know as well it's best to just go to bed, And this would normally be a time when I'd be I don't know what that stupid cat's doing. That would be normally a time when I'd be like on dating apps or on some kind of app trying to look for somebody to talk to, like some woman to talk to. And it's just a bad cycle. Okay, he was just trying to break into his cat food bag. He can edge open the drawer sometimes. If it's not fully closed, he'll edge open the drawer where his cat food bag is, and he'll just start chewing on the corner of it, trying to pull it out. That cat is so annoying because he's always trying to get his freaking cat food, and he's always trying to like tell me he wants his cat food, but he never waits until like the time. Like, I feed him in the morning when I wake up. He'll try and wake me up, and then I feed him at 4 p.m. and he always is trying to like bother me to get it beforehand. But anyways, if I feed him too much as well, he'll get fat. So I put him on a diet. I looked up how much cat food does he even need. It's like not much. It's like 150 grams a day, so 75 each meal. But he doesn't like that. He wants more food. He's like orange and white. He's a greedy cat. Anyways, so I don't want to be like on the like dating apps and everything, trying to just like like it's so awful. It's such an awful cycle, being on those dating apps, and like it sucks. Seriously, it sucks. It's like dating app hell. It's so awful. just trying to constantly talk to people, and everybody's looking for somebody else, and nobody has like full attention to give anyone, and it's all based on looks as well. And yeah, I don't know. It's just the dating in general is terrible in modern day, but it's still possible, obviously. But I think it would be better if I would talk to women in real life. You know, like I really should work up my confidence to do that, and I've done that before actually, and it's worked before, and it's also not worked before, but I feel like it's way more healthy, and you have a way higher like success chance, I guess you could say, in real life compared to on dating apps. Of course, there's a lot of things that play into it, and there's a lot of like culture around it, the looks maxing culture, and the incels, black pill, pickup artists, whatever. There's like a huge cultural thing around it, but for the most part, it's kind of, the whole thing sucks. Like the goal is just to have like a relationship. So if your goal is not that, if your goal is not marriage and a family, then what is your goal? It just like kind of sucks. And some people, they just want to like, because it's their own personal choice or whatever, they want to impose it on everybody else and say like, oh, well, no, you can have hookups, that's totally fine, and you can have platonic, and you can have companionship and all this other stuff. But yeah, the whole thing turns into a mess pretty quick to talk about. But I would say that the data shows for sure that dating is not going that well for, you know, quite a few people. Not everybody, obviously, but increasingly more people. Okay, so this is where I took that L-theanine before I went to bed. This is embarrassing to talk about, and it sounds stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I had like a good sleep, but then I had like a wet dream, like a sex dream, and it's like super embarrassing. Sounds really stupid, because I'm like 30 years old, and but the thing is that I don't think this ever happened to me in my life, and I think the reason is because I stopped pornography and masturbation, and you know, that's the whole topic is really embarrassing to talk about, but this is truly what happened. And the reason I say it is just because I think like maybe my brain and my body is just sort of like catching up or adjusting or something like that. Like I don't know, like reorganizing itself, because that kind of like urge, like that's those like sexual urges, they're very, very strong, and like, so I've been resisting them, you know, thanks be to God. And so it just kind of like, I guess it just my body worked it out in a dream. And so that was strange, because that's never really happened to me before. Although I've had a sexual dream before, I've never had like a truly like a wet dream. And I mean, it's embarrassing to say, but this kind of stuff does happen to you know, males, usually like adolescent or young males, but I guess it can happen to older men too, like adult men too. So anyways, and I wonder if it has to do with the L-theanine, because I think I was having like a good sleep last night, you know. So anyways, yeah, I don't know, like obviously I would prefer to have a relationship and a more normal life that way, but I'm basically like working towards it. And yeah, so I don't know, it's embarrassing to talk about, but it's the truth. And so I think in that sense, it's important. Alright, and then moving on, I want to talk about something that I noticed in the faces of two different people that I was watching YouTube videos, like I saw them in YouTube videos. There was both interviews. And the first one was Sam Altman being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And the main thing that I picked up on and noticed, and I honestly don't know if other people notice this as well. They might. I bet you some people do. But sometimes you look at somebody's face, and sometimes their face looks pale. I think this happens to me sometimes, definitely. But you can see in their face that their face looks pale, and their eyes look like raccoon eyes, like almost like sunken, and like have big bags or like circles around the eyes. And then the face is kind of pale, and they just don't look all that well. And what I wonder about it is, like, is that partially a spiritual thing, or is that completely a physical thing? Like, obviously you could say it's stress, or you could say it's a they're sick, or that there's, I don't know. But I wonder about this, because I've noticed it. I'm able to notice this, and some people, you see them in contrast, and they have like a healthy face. There's actually a study that shows that the sclera, which is like the white part of the eyes, you can actually look at someone's sclera and just know generally how healthy they are if the sclera is white. So sometimes I see the sclera in my eyes, and it's like red, or like, has veins, blood veins or whatever. And with some other people, sometimes you see them, it's like they're almost like bordering on light brown. And then of course, if someone has jaundice, I think they get yellow eyes. But the sclera becomes yellow, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. But this study said, like, just looking at sort of this general look of someone's face, you can kind of tell how healthy they are, especially the eyes. But yeah, this kind of gets into the conversation of physiognomy. But physiognomy is real, which I think a lot of people thought it wasn't, or it was disproven, or it was something like this. But there's new studies showing that you can actually tell just by the shape of someone's face. This is not talking about the general paleness or gauntness of someone's face, although it's related. But you can tell by just the shape of someone's face and what their political opinions are, whether they're right-leaning or left-leaning. And so there were new studies showing this. And, it's kind of funny, because I think people somehow, some people at least, think that they're never fully understood, or nobody knows what they really think, or something like this. And it's like, there's, you kind of can figure out where people sit in the order of the world through lateral or peripheral information, deduction, and so forth. Although you can't know everything, the inner workings and the secret place in someone's heart, but you can kind of, you can somewhat figure it out, even through how someone's face looks. Isn't that amazing? And I mean, it's going off the topic of these interviews, but it's funny, because I don't actually think I look that good. I don't actually know, like, I don't have a very set opinion on how I look, and sometimes it changes, just depending on, I guess, how I feel that day. And I'm sure this is kind of probably common for a lot of people, but and I've gotten better about not caring too much. But my point is that sometimes people will say that I look good, or that I'm attractive, or that something like that. Sometimes women will tell me that, and I genuinely cannot believe it. Like, I don't know how to believe it or how to take it. And I think this is because I've been bullied so dang much. And I'm not just trying to whine and cry, but when I was in, high school, like, there was this girl I had a crush on, and she would literally hold up a piece of paper where she wrote on there, "You're ugly," and show it to me. And it's like, that's really mean. Thankfully, I had a friend there, and he kind of defended me a little bit, but yeah. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people's distortion or perception of themselves has been distorted through bullying and definitely through online, I believe. Just through seeing yourself and seeing so many images of people's faces through a screen, and then those have obviously been, generally they're selected, right? They're not, people don't show you themselves when they look ugly. They show you themselves when they think they look good, if they can help it, obviously. So over time, seeing enough of this, it warps people's perception, the highlight reel thing. But this has been talked about before, but yeah, I think that it's definitely had an effect on people, especially women and young girls, I believe, because the rates for all children or all young people since around 2012 of like depression and anxiety have skyrocketed or gone very high. And then also, yeah, there's just a huge rise in all sorts of, what they say, mental health issues and so forth. So anyways, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but I do believe that online and social media and the internet and so on has had a huge part to play. And then the changing social dynamic and the stretching or the shearing or the warping of the social fabric has probably had a huge effect on how people feel about themselves. Because now when you see an event or something, like I was watching, I'm digressing, but I was watching Street League. It's like a skateboard event, and it's a great event, but in the crowd you can see like there's like these, all the people watching, and then there's groups of women, beautiful young girls and or beautiful young women, and they go on their phone, and they kind of like, they'll just be standing there on their phone, and like other ones be on their phone and stuff. And so it's really yeah, I feel like I saw a comment that said social media cooked women's brains, and I mean, it possibly has. There's a lot to be said about the beauty standard and all that, but I actually don't like to get into that conversation too much. I actually like to keep things factual if I do, but it becomes very personal for people. So anyways, understandably, I guess, right? Because how you look really affects how people treat you, therefore affecting, your entire life, you would think, right? So if people put a lot of stock into how they look, or think that their life would be a lot better if they looked better, that would make sense, right? If your desire is to have a relationship, but you feel like people reject you based on how you look, then that would be upsetting, obviously. So anyways, and that's really reflected in the modern statistics we have on dating apps and stuff like that. But I'm not going to get too much into that conversation. But my point was, going back to my point, it was about first the look of Sam Altman. And I think this guy's evil. He's Jewish. He's Tucker was asking him basically about AI. So Sam Altman is the creator of OpenAI. And there's a bit of history there about how he kind of tricked investors, namely Elon Musk, and by making it not for profit, switching it to a for profit model, making it not for profit to get huge investment, switching it to a for profit model, And then he's also, there's other shady stuff going on too about how one of his top programmers ended up dead, and they said it was a suicide, but it like did not look like a suicide at all. And it was right around the time that programmer was, I think, going public with some questions or perhaps some information. So maybe he was a whistleblower that was shut up. We don't really know for sure, but it looks very fishy. And the main question that Tucker Carlson was asking Sam Altman was, where does the morality come from in AI? So what that means, morality is right and wrong. How does the AI know what is right and wrong? When you ask it a question, and millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are asking AI questions every day. And we're getting a lot of stuff talking about AI, and some of it sounds great and some of it sounds terrible. We're talking about AI psychosis, and there's other crazy stories as well. But then there's other stories of AI being very beneficial as well. So it's kind of this classic idea about consequences and consequences of a new technology. This is very, very big topic, very important topic. I think Ted Kaczynski wrote about this. The Unabomber, his whole thing was about industrial society and its consequences, which I have not read fully, or even really any of it, but I do know that he was talking about, well, what happens when you industrialize a society? And what happens when you keep adding technology? Aristotle said that we shouldn't even have scrolls. So putting your writing onto a scroll and storing it, I believe that, he was saying you shouldn't even have scrolls because it's going to make people outsource or take the contents of their mind and put it out into the world, and then not have that information within their mind, but have it outsourced. This is a huge point, to be honest, because we are now, I think people have said that we're effectively like cyborgs, or non-physically altered cyborgs. People are just talking about the iPhone, because everybody's got a smartphone or an iPhone, and nobody remembers phone numbers anymore. Maybe some people do, but nobody does anymore. People used to have little books, or they would try and remember it in their mind, and phone numbers for a lot of people. But because the technology gets better, the brain and the mind and the logic system changes to where, what's the point of memorizing phone numbers? My phone can do it for me. And so this is a similar idea to what's going on with AI. And Tucker's saying, well, where does the morality system come from for AI? How does it know what's right and wrong? And Sam Altman was giving dodgy, weird answers. He eventually said that he's the one who should take the blame, or he's the one who should be responsible for the morality system, or the what's right and wrong within AI, because he's the face of the company. But he's saying that his team, or the people on his team, they write what he calls the spec, or they write the code or whatever that creates the morality system. And he wouldn't give any of their names specifically, and he was kind of dodgy about who's actually writing, how it decides what's right and wrong. And the purpose is for knowing how it decides what is right and wrong is because people are asking it questions all the time, and it's giving them answers saying, yes, do this, no, don't do that, that's bad, this is good, and so people are treating it like an authority figure, and I think a good question is, how does it really get its authority, and I talked about this a little bit before, but nobody really knows. And that's kind of the funny thing, because AI, with its neural network, the foundation of how it works is that it's more so like probability based. And I believe they can do overrides and stuff like that in programming it, but it places weights on things, like so I think it does like it's called back propagation, and then it does some mathematics, like I think a fast Fourier transform, and it's kind of like a black box on an aircraft, I believe. Similar analogy. It's just sort of like we don't exactly know how it works, similar to algorithms. The people who program algorithms, they say, well, we don't know exactly how they work. It's almost similar to advertising as well, because I don't think anyone knows directly or exactly how advertising works. They just know that if you put ads out, sales increase. So it's sort of like, there's sort of like the question mark thing. There's like that old meme. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3, question mark, step 4, profit. So that's kind of like what it is like, is that no one really 100% knows. And Sam Altman didn't really say that, but he said that we want to give AI sort of a world morality. And Tucker was saying, like, well, you know, in Africa, they believe gay marriage is wrong. I think one African state allows gay marriage, which is South Africa, I think. Well, in the U.S., everybody allows gay marriage. I actually think the Africans are smarter on this issue than Americans are, and Western societies are. Because personally, through my beliefs, I don't condone gay marriage. And so if you ask an AI, you know, it'll give you, I don't know, it'll give you a different answer. And you're getting millions of people using AI, and it's actually changing. It was funny, Sam Altman said that he said that his biggest fear with AI was the unknown unknowns. Which, I mean, I kind of understand that, but truly, what I believe that is that's like a rejection of God and a fear of the devil. That's what I believe that to be, because unknown unknowns, well, the devil is incoherent, so that you don't know what the devil is exactly, and the devil doesn't exist without people. And this is how I've heard it said before, this is how the devil can get into large organizations, is that there's these spaces that open up between people that can kind of allow the devil to exist. But so he said his biggest fear was the unknown unknowns, and he's saying, like, I don't sleep that well at night, and his face just had like this weird look on it, and I sometimes I wonder if that's like not like a spiritual sickness when people look like that. And so really what we should do is pray for people, but he's in really deep, of course, but yeah, a lot of people are kind of concerned about AI, and I, like, personally, I don't think AI is going to be used for good. Certainly I don't think that. Reason I say that is because it can be used for social engineering, and it can be used for processing huge amounts of data. That means just everybody can, you know, they're building these $500 billion AI data centers, and so you can just take all the data it can record everything. Everybody presses agree and accept to all these terms and conditions for different apps and for different things, and nobody reads them. And I don't know if it made enough news as it should have, but a few years ago they found out, or somebody reported that TikTok, if you agreed to its terms and conditions, and it was owned by China at the time, that it would access everything on your phone. It had access to all your pictures, messages, everything, and it could harvest that data. So it could harvest all its users' data, and I'm not sure if it allowed it to control your phone or use your phone or something like that. But I mean, certainly we know since the NSA stuff that the government was shown to be spying on everybody, but nobody knew about it until it was a whistleblower, Edward Snowden, that said something. We know that the government will collect massive amounts of data and use it for, I believe, narrative control. That's what I believe, truly. Whether it's social engineering, which is things like monitoring what messages are dominant. There's this study. It was such a great study. I think it was by Victor Cooperman, who I met, but he's like a linguist guy, and I really look up to him. Although the thing is, he's Jewish, and I mean, not my first instinct to look up to somebody who's Jewish, and that's just because of my bias against Jewish people, since all of this new information about what's going on with Jewish control and influence and power. But the thing is that I look up to him because of his research. Is really amazing, because he showed he scraped a ton of data. I'm not sure exactly where, but he took a huge data set, and then he showed which words are most prominently used between Canada and the US, and it was so funny to me, because the most used words in Canada were things like sorry, hey, hello, please, or something like this, and all this Canadian politeness stuff, which personally I think Canadians are more passive aggressive than just polite anymore. But on the American side, the most used words were like nigga, laughing face emoji, crying laughing face emoji, fire emoji. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's just hilarious to see, where the discourse is. So, who would make use of this data? Who would use this data? It's so funny. But so the way they use the data, okay, is that they use it for marketing purposes, selling stuff to people, and then they use it for pushing messages, okay? It's just funny. And the marketing messages that would be used are stuff like, if you look at any slogans for any fast food, they use slogans that contain words that have a positive valence. So valence is like good or bad, or positive or negative. So whether a word makes you feel positive or negative. On the positive side, it's words like good, sunshine, puppies, like respect, stuff like words around that, like, you know, clouds, honey. Those words make people feel kind of good. They have a positive valence. On the other side, there's words like rape, murder, pedophile, kidnap, you know, other words like that. They catch people's attention and people like focus on it. If there's a conversation outside and someone says that, you hear that, and you're like, you look over, you know. I was in the library the other day, and the librarian came up to some guy who was on the computer, and she said, someone said you have a gun in your bag, and the entire library like looked over and it went quiet. And the guy, he was like some sort of like either, you know, possibly mentally, intellectually disabled, you could say, person. But he was making a lot of noise and he was playing computer games. And he says, "Oh no, I don't have a gun in my bag. No, I would never bring a gun in my bag to the library." And then, you know, a minute or two later, the regular flow of the library returns. So anyways, it's these words that really do have a big effect on society. And so restaurants will use them in their slogans. They'll say things like, A&W is a hamburger place in Canada. I believe it may be in the States as well, but it's definitely big in Canada. And it says, "Good food makes good food." That's their slogan. McDonald's, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. What's another one? Wendy's, I don't know, they're always talking about fresh. Subway, eat fresh. You know, so they use these to sell stuff to people, obviously. But they do this with all brands. And the purpose is, it's like brand building. It's like, if I say these words, and get, you know, people will naturally associate these words with good things. Well, if I say these words that people like next to what I'm trying to sell, and I just keep repeating that, you know, sales will I'll have more sales. Like, it's marketing, ad campaigns. So the government uses this knowledge as well. I mean, it's kind of like basic, but maybe people don't know it at this deep of a level. I'm not trying to say I'm like, you know, super smart or anything. I'm sure advertisers know this as well, but it's the intention behind it, right? They're using it, their intention and their purposes is make money. So, so they start to, you know, they study the populace, they study people, and then they start to change their brand and their message to align with the youth or whichever demographic that they're trying to sell to. Okay, so that was a long digression. The other person that I saw that looked pale was Mohammed bin Salman, I think his name is, MBS. He had an interview with Trump. I think he's the Saudi Arabian crown prince or king. I'm not sure if he's the king, but he's, you know, near the head, at the head or near the head of the Saudi royal family. And he was meeting with Saudi Arabian royal family. He was meeting with Donald Trump. This video is recent, and his face, you could see he really looked uncomfortable, and his face had that paleness as well. And his complexion naturally is more brown because, you know, he's Middle Eastern Arabian, not sure the exact, I guess you call that phenotype or whatever, but but just generally he's like a brown Middle Eastern man. But his face looked like pale, and you can actually see in his eyes too, kind of like looked a bit gaunt, or not gaunt, but had the bags, but yeah, so I noticed that with him as well. And he was saying like about like someone asked him a pointed question about I think it was a journalist named Khashoggi who died, and they found that, so I think he was like poisoned and cut up and put into a suitcase and then taken somewhere, and it's like that's a horrible crime, and who's responsible? And so the journalist was asking him about this, and I believe it happened in Saudi Arabia. I'm not 100% sure on that, but he gave an answer. I'm not even really sure, but it was just kind of like whatever, propaganda type answer, I suppose. But he was also asked about 9/11, and he was just blaming Osama bin Laden. It's like, if you don't know by now, like, there was way more going on with 9/11, and that's coming out now more and more recently, which is a good thing, because with 9/11 there's a lot that implicates Israel's involvement, and it's really looking very, very bad. I think Netanyahu's on record saying that 9/11 was good for Israel, but there's way more to it than that. So anyways, I just noticed these people kind of look pale. I noticed that I notice sometimes people look pale, and I wonder what it is really. If it's just stress, is it something more? Is it spiritual? Is it a combination? The world is definitely stressful. That's 100% true. So I'm reading this book, Two Paths, Orthodoxy and Catholicism. And I believe that the evidence, although I'm still learning, I don't want to call it too quickly, but I believe I'm being very fair. But the evidence is not looking good for the Roman Catholic Church. And I am a Roman Catholic. I was baptized into the church as a child. I don't remember what age I was, but I do remember going to the baptism, but I was pretty young, maybe like 6, somewhere around there. And I believe I went through, I think my mom said I went through confirmation, and yeah, I think she said we did it all very, very quickly. You could do it quickly. But I didn't understand it when I was younger, and then I went away from the faith for a long time. Did a lot of like sinful stuff, and explored a lot of other thought processes, and other like psychology stuff. And I was listening to this guy Leo Gura, who's like, I don't even know what he is. He never really says, but now I kind of realize that I think he's kind of like some sort of Gnostic maybe, or a monist. I'm not even really sure what exactly he is, but he's the guy behind actualize.org. So but now I don't I do believe he's got parts of the stuff he says is good, but he said something recently I saw on a blog post which I didn't agree with. He said that we were supposed to love demons. He said Christians are not advanced enough to understand that. It's like, I don't believe that. Like, I don't even believe that's got to do with being advanced or not. I believe that God is incompatible with evil. So yeah, I don't believe that we are supposed to love demons, but I do believe we're supposed to pray for our enemies. And what we're really praying for is like the soul within people. So the good within people. And in this book, it's just everything, like, it seems like a lot of the Roman Catholic position, and this is a huge conversation, but it's about authority, and a lot of the position comes from Matthew, I think it's 16 verse 18 and 19, I think. It's the one about you are Peter, you are the rock upon you are Peter, and upon this rock I build the church, and I think that's what the verse is. I'm paraphrasing. And then also, I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And so this is what the Roman Catholic position, a lot of it is on this. And what this book is saying, that actually it's, and this is kind of hard to understand, but it's first among equals. So that's what they're saying, that it was in the beginning, or in the, before the Great Schism of 1054, I believe, that there's a lot of evidence showing that no one really had the modern Roman Catholic position, that it started over time, and that in the beginning it really wasn't like that at all. It was like how do I put this? I think the church was more ecumenical in a way. I think ecumenical, that just means like mini churches, or the different churches, and it wasn't just all the power concentrated on one person, the Bishop of Rome, or the Pope, known as the Pope. It wasn't just like that, like it is now. And it's making a lot of good arguments, speaking from the early church fathers and so forth. But like I said, it's a very contentious issue, or thing. So I'm trying to investigate it, and I'm still learning. But it's it's the modern Roman Catholic position. It's not making as much sense. And when I say modern Roman Catholic position, I speak especially about the newer position, like post World War II, Vatican II, and now I believe it was just very recent that Pope Leo said that there should be. He's basically calling for open borders, or he's calling for letting more immigrants come in, and sort of appealing to their, I don't know, just appealing to like love and compassion or something like this, and that we should let everybody in. And then people are saying, well, why is the Vatican walled, and why is it like the strictest immigration to get into the Vatican City or become a citizen? And it just doesn't make sense. Like, he's calling for mass immigration, or just letting all immigrants who want to come. And I just don't agree with that. I really do not. And then there's more about like the Pope has like secret police and a secret intelligence agency. You can actually find that on Wikipedia. I didn't know about that, but that's kind of weird too. And but yeah, I think that the Pope or the Church should represent the Bible, obviously, and should represent and follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and God the Father and the Holy Spirit. So I think that's what's important. Yeah. the Pope talks about climate change as like a huge threat, but I think that's kind of like a diversion, really. And it's weird because like some of these things, they're such a quagmire. I'm speaking about things like some major issues become like a quagmire where you can't move through them very well, and it's like even the experts are in disagreement, and then it just becomes very confusing. And I think that's the point, honestly, because as everybody's confused about all this stuff, the general life gets worse, and all these things start going through and happening while people are scratching their heads trying to figure out what should we do. And I think that's the point. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a destabilization, trying to make people not feel like they really know what they can and can't do, and just, you know, bickering and arguing amongst themselves while time goes on and while things happen. You know, because things do happen, right? It's not just like nothing happens and that we have all this time to kind of figure it out. It's like things do actually happen and time does go on. Although things kind of happen in a sort of a gradual, it's partly about trends and direction, and yeah, so I don't know. I'm leaning more into the Orthodox side, but I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm still learning. So anyway, I had a really bad headache, I think last night and earlier today, but I took these 2 hydrogen water tablets. They're like these little tablets you can put in your water, and then they effervesce. That's the name for. They just basically dissolve into bubbles, and they make the water kind of like a sparkling water with bubbles in it, but it's now got hydrogen infused quality to it, I think, and you're supposed to drink that really fast, and then it really does have an effect. Like my brain's working more quickly. My headache's really almost like gone. So it really has an effect, and I don't notice really any downside as much as maybe other stuff. So I'm actually a fan of hydrogen water. I think I was listening to some podcast about it, and I really don't know enough about science to really know, but they were just trying to make the point that it's because we are made up of a lot of hydrogen, so I guess that's why it's supposed to help us. I don't know. I would need to know more, and I don't know if I'm saying something that's incorrect or not. But I do know that the effect is there. I do feel an effect. So, anyways, a lot of things are kind of like, you could say, diversions, like Climate Cafe and stuff. I just went back to my previous point, but another thing is that I feel very lonely, and I always talk about this, but I do feel very lonely. I find it difficult to be in a relationship that includes romantic and friendship. Even though I want those things very much, I find it difficult to start them, to maintain them. And it's hard because it's like, I don't know, I guess it's because I don't feel like maybe the same all the time. And I feel bad about people seeing the real me. Like in these vlogs, honestly, I really do express a lot of just how I'm really feeling, which is really helpful for me, actually. But when I'm talking to people, I really pick up on people's energy, and it almost like short circuits me or like something. And it's hard to just vibe. You know, that's the best feeling, is when you just vibe with somebody, meaning you're on the same wavelength, you're on the same vibration. You can, you know, do stuff together and it's no big deal. There's not all this like fight and tension and everything. And if people know their roles, that's the ideal, I think. And maybe in a friendship, it's funny because in relationships, I do think that there has to be a roles part to it, that there should be roles distinct for both men and women. But I think that in friendships, especially like male friendships, depending on the situation, men will just go fill the role depending on skill set, and the other men will just let it happen. And if someone else says, you know what, you're doing it wrong, then that man who's trying to do it will just like, all right, go ahead. And then the other man will go in and, you know, do it. And nobody has a problem with that. They'll actually respect if someone knows how to do it. But if that other man who said you're doing it wrong and then takes a shot and can't do it, you know, everybody else will kind of like playfully or like, you know, jeer. I don't even know what the words are, but it's just like, well, you didn't know what the hell you were doing. And it's all good, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's kind of like the beauty of that sounds gay. that's like what is that's like what's good about your buddies, you know what I'm saying? So I wish I had buddies again, but yeah, it's hard being alone. And it's also hard to show the real you, which is tough because it sounds kind of gay. But then it's like also kind of a good thing. Like it is a good thing, I think. But yeah, and yeah, that's a tough one actually. Because when you talk about like showing the real you, you're talking about exposing a vulnerability. And by definition, a vulnerability is something that could get hurt. So therefore, you know, showing your heart, let's say, when you do that, your heart, by definition or by necessity, could get hurt. So that's why it's kind of tough. You know what I'm saying? So that's why a lot of people armor themselves and harden their hearts and yeah, and also become vengeful and so on, because it's like if you know, try something genuinely and other people disrespect it or just tramp all over it, and that was something that you were like, oh, I'm gonna try cooking, and hey guys, this is my first meal, I'm just trying to learn, and your friends eat it and they're like, oh, you overcooked it, this tastes like shit, and then, you know, you're just like, yeah, that it doesn't feel good, because in your mind you're like, I'm trying to get some support, and I'm saying this is my first time, you know, go easy basically, and you know, people don't really support you, then it can just like kind of stomp on your efforts, and then you don't even want to try again. You're like F you guys, I don't even really want to make something else because you guys tell me my food tastes like shit. Now I'm not saying this happens every time, but I'm saying this is one case scenario that could happen when you try to show something. Now take other stuff, for example. Let's say you write poetry. Let's say you write poetry. You know, people might say that, you know, it sucks, or this is very gay, or this is something like whatever. Yeah, so anyway. Jeez. I'm laughing, but it's just more like out of habit, really. It's like part funny and part out of habit. So anyways. Yeah, I don't like showing people when I feel really bad as well. I don't think anyone really likes doing that. Like, if you're feeling like very terrible, it's like showing that you're feeling weak, and then you don't want to be a burden, and so on and so forth. So another thing that has been going on is I've been having like a song stuck in my head for years, but keep having a song stuck in my head for like the last couple days. It's not really there right now, which I'm thankful for. Another thing is that I feel like I make people feel bad, and I don't like that, you know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah. So it encourages, it's kind of like a self-reinforcing thing to not be around people if you just make them feel bad, or if you feel like you make them feel bad or whatever. Because I feel like honestly, I hate the question, how are you? And because I feel like forced to say, oh, good, and then just like, it just feels like the whole thing feels like a lie. And, but if I tell people how I feel, then they start trying to make me feel better. And I'm like, oh, I do not want to get into this. I do not want to go through this whole thing about like, do I have to pretend that you're helping and yada, yada, yada. If I tell you, please stop, then now am I hurting your feelings, making you feel bad? So this is kind of like a fawning response. I learned about this recently, yesterday, I guess, but I used to think fawning, because it's now 5 Fs. I used to think it was 4 Fs. Before it used to be like 2 Fs. And then maybe it was 3, but it's like fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop. So I guess flop is the new one, or the most recent one that I learned about. And it is what I used to think fawn was. Flop is the like dissociation, play dead response, which is a real thing in extreme stress, extreme trauma, whatever. The body will just kind of like, the brain will just kind of like almost like leave, and the brain will like flood. It's like a last response to protect, I guess, the psyche or something, but it'll flood the brain will flood itself with I can't remember what it is exactly, if it's some sort of feel-good chemical, but yeah, and so this can happen as a protective measure, and that's flop, right? It could happen in like I don't want to be graphic or anything, but like in a sexual assault or something like that. And the fawning response is like people pleasing. So that's like being very agreeable. And so this is like something I've struggled with my whole life, and it's really frustrating because it's like I don't know how to genuinely connect with people. And actually it says, I was reading about it, it says that identity issue is part of that response, because the reason people do that fawning or people pleasing is because they feel like love and safety is conditional on them behaving a certain way that is not being a threat, that is not causing conflict. And so fawning is trying to make yourself less of a threat. So I've always had this kind of problem or response. And it's tough, you know, because it's like almost like a hardwired response at this point. And I'm trying to figure it out and get better at not doing that. And partly that's through making these videos, and then also I think the most important thing is going on like having conversations and debates, like healthy conflict, because that's a break from the pattern, right? So yeah, so it's about fear of conflict, comes from a lot of bullying, comes from a lot of, you know, childhood trauma, which I experienced a lot of both of those. And I feel like it's ongoing as well, because there's also conflict in my family, and in society, and a lot of times there's the just be happy message, which just can really make you very upset, because I really don't like that message, because I feel like it's just kind of like gaslighting. It's the be happy attitudes instead of beatitudes. The beatitudes being the Christian beatitudes. And it's confusing as well, because it's not all bad, right? If you do feel genuinely happy, then that's great, right? And it's partly why I say people live in different realities too. But yeah, my head does hurt a lot of the time. I would say it's like 70-80% of the time I'll have a headache. Maybe it's not that high. I'm not sure. It's pretty high though. And then my last point, or maybe my last point, is that texting is really AIDS. Texting is really awful. It's like it can sometimes be fun, and I've had times in the past where texting was fun, but it's also like texting is replaced in person and phone call and all these other things, because people now have this sort of logic or this thinking of like, I don't want to hear all this, just text me, text me the one word answer, text me the one sentence answer, let's get to the point, send it in a text. And on a productivity level, or like let's find some more information, interesting information, let's keep it flowing. Okay, what's that text? Okay, I didn't need to hear all that. Okay, like on that level, texting kind of fits in and makes sense. But on the human connection, natural, normal connection level, texting can be pretty ass. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. But when I was a kid, so we used to go on MSN Messenger. It was like a text platform or a text chat room, and you could add your friends, and basically you could see when your friends were online, and you could open up a chat room with them, and you could text them back and forth, and it was the greatest. It was so good. It was so good at first, but I was like, I don't know how young I was. I was still in elementary, so I would have been like, 8, 9, 10, maybe 11, 12, something like this. But it was really a lot of fun, and I just remember, and I think partly that's about like what it's like for being a kid in general, is things can be a lot of fun, especially if it's with your friends. And we're just like firing all these stupid texts back and forth and chatting, and it's like things were evolving, right? And then I also had a lot of texting on StarCraft. Brood War was a game that I was just so obsessed with when I was a kid, and that's a very fun game, very high skill cap, very fun game. And it's like an RTS, real-time strategy, and we were just like text back and forth. You could observe games, and we'd have like a bunch of people observing like a 1v1 match, and then we'd all just be texting the whole time, talking about the game, and it was like really lively and involved, and you almost like got to know the people. Like I still remember the people, but I don't know who they are, like what they look like, anything real about them other than from the game world. Like there was I don't know if he was my best friend, but he was like the guy that I liked the most on there was Salvia_div, and I know now the guy probably was like taking salvia, but I didn't know what that was at the time. And I knew I knew like people on Diablo 2 was another fun one, and I think one of my favorite friends that I remember, his name was like Hammered Yo Mom, and it's just like when you're a kid, and it was because he was playing a Hammerdin. It's like a character, the Paladin, which you can get. Blessed Hammer is like one of the skills, so it's called a Hammerdin, and his name was like Hammered Yo Mom, and it was just like, you know, a crass joke, right? And so, yeah, so it was just like, yeah, a lot of texting, and but now texting is way more AIDS, in my opinion. And I honestly, I think it's like just so unnatural for people and for their social skills, because now it's all Discord, Snapchat, stream chats. If you've ever seen a stream chat, like a live stream chat, it's just like a spam of garbage. So yeah, it's like the relationship, the one-to-one relationship between people has really disintegrated or degenerated a lot. Like a lot. And the social skills have degenerated a lot. Yeah, so I was out shooting basketball, and these, like, I don't know if they were teenage girls or what, but they were yelling at me like, "How old are you? What's your Snapchat?" I didn't respond, and then they said like, "Fuck you then." Like, yeah, I'm not, like, I'm 30 years old, like, but that's kind of the standard, is like, what's your Instagram? What's your Snapchat? What's your blah 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 blah? Like, that's how people like find connection now. It's like instantly through online identity and online. And online sucks. I don't know if you've ever used this stuff, but it's like people use Snapchat, they just use it for like, I don't know, like huge percentage just use it for like nudes, and sexting is huge and rampant online, and so it's a lot of it's really degenerate, and you can really get caught in it too, is another thing. And yeah, and Reddit is super gay. I do not like Reddit, and when I say gay, I mean like not just like the homosexual meaning, but also just like the old meaning used to be like just like stupid, effeminate, annoying, like that kind of, like Reddit sucks. Like I used to use it a ton for like 7 years or so. I think starting when I was like maybe like 17, I was just on Reddit all the time, and I was really like addicted to my phone, and Reddit, it was just like when you get into these kind of things, it's just like, wow, so much amazing new information constantly, and you get to see all these comments, and you get to read all these replies and everything. And I never used to post either, but I was just a lurker, and it's like you feel like the people are smart because they sound kind of smart, and you feel like there's all this stuff, and you feel like you're learning so much, and you feel like you're saving so many things that you can do later and everything, and it's just like a lot of it's just like garbage. And then you realize later it's like a lot of stuff is just regurgitated and reposts, and a lot of people say the same thing or the same theme, or and yeah, I'm really not a fan of Reddit. And then now we know that it's like super censored and heavily. I think it's like owned partly by China, and the moderation is just like insane. And so anyway, I'm not a fan of it. Although there are niche subreddits, I guess, that you could find good stuff on there, and yeah. So some texting is fun, it's possible, but most of it, yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I really prefer being in person is my biggest preference. And then I also like phone calls, and texting can be okay, but yeah, I do not think texting is very conducive to normal society, really, or normal human nature, I would say. So 4chan, the memes are very funny. Some of them very funny. A lot of it can go really far, but that's the thing too, is like memes can be so funny too, especially when you're growing up. And when I was in high school, memes were just starting to come around. They were starting to get really popular. And it was like a lot of it was like the classic silly memes, like cat memes and you mad bro and this kind of stuff. Dirtbag Steve, or whatever that was, the guy with his hat on the sideways. And then there was like later on there was like the overattached girlfriend and all this stuff. But memes really evolved, and memes are just memetics, I guess, which is just like not exactly sure what that is, but I believe it's like a quickly transferred idea, something like this. So memes can really capture something really succinctly, which is what people's minds start to almost like, I don't know about evolve into, but people's attention span starts to change into, in a way, because it's like if it perfectly encapsulates something, then you just say the meme. And I've had friends like this before, where it's almost like they speak in memes, and it kind of gets annoying too, because it can be funny, but then some people, it's like that's the only way they can think, almost, is like in meme form. And it's like a certain situation happens, and then they're instantly trying to like quote the meme, and it just gets like, yeah. But you find this a lot in like different online communities, especially like Smash Bros. I never really got into that one, but there's different communities and stuff that have their own certain memes and such. But yeah, I don't know. I think memes can be funny. I think I probably still have a ton of memes that I thought were funny. But I do think that it changes people's minds and social skills. Or warps their minds and social skills, probably is better said. But yeah, my final point is about I guess a fractal. And I want to relate this to how God is. I want to be careful about saying this, because I don't want to be in any way disrespectful. Not saying that I'm trying to be or will, but I do think that things in life are in some way like a fractal. If you've seen a fractal, it's like there's like a center point, or like an infinitely kind of like growing or regressing point, and then there's all these patterns and designs that come out, but they're all kind of like have like a symmetrical shape or something like that. And life is somewhat similar to this. And the reason I say that is because it's like people are connected almost like in a fractal way, but we're connected to that infinite point, which is God. So, yeah, it's kind of a hard point to really put too many words to, but I do think that strange loops are also another part or another way to describe this, because a strange loop is like something that seems like it's like a flat hierarchy, or I think an Ouroboros is like a strange loop as well, maybe, but a strange loop is like, it's like a loop or a circle, but it has like progression in it, but then it goes back to the start. So you can see this in what's that triangle? It's like Penrose triangle, and you can see this in other depictions, but it's like we in some ways are in a strange loop, or I think Douglas Hofstadter has said we are a strange loop. His book is like I Am a Strange Loop, I think one of them is. His other book, Gödel, Escher, and Bach, is very good as well. But it talks all about this as well. And the way you move upward or downward is, I think it's through levels of consciousness, either toward or away from God. So that's what I think. Otherwise, you're just sort of like in a strange loop, something like this, like, and it's very it's very related to story and narrative as well, because that's how we kind of think about things, is through a story or a narrative. And that's where it can be quote unquote powerful to work on a story, your own story, or ask somebody else questions about their story, because it will bring up or reveal where somebody is on their consciousness level, what they say, and this is like, well, you know, what's important to you? And then they say, well, my business is the most important thing to me. It's like, why? Well, my business generates $1.5 million each year, and my profits are only growing. Okay, so what is profit the most important to you? So, and they say, yeah, well, obviously we need money, don't we? It's like, okay, well, so that would be where that person is, or at least reveal part of where they are, is that they care a lot about money. But if you ask somebody about, well, what's important to you, and they say, my family, or if they say, my faith in God, or what they say in response reveals, I think, very much about where they are on that consciousness level. And furthermore, I think if you ask somebody, why is it, well, what are you struggling with? And if they say, well, I'm really struggling to find a relationship, and I say, okay, well, why? And it's like, you get all these other things, and then it's like, well, why don't, well, here's something you could do. You could go talk to people. So then, if they're not able to, then maybe they would tell you why, or maybe they wouldn't, or maybe they just laugh it off. But I think it's a really important question. It's like, well, why don't we go connect with other people? If that's a higher state of consciousness, to be in loving relationship, then us choosing to not be in communion with people, with other people, would reveal, I think, that there's some sort of reason there. Maybe you could say blockage or something there why it's hard, right? So yeah, so I do believe that's related to attachment style and everything and what's going on in our life. And so anyway, that's my whole video. It's just a huge rambly rant that was loosely connected, just thoughts and what's going on in my life.